And we're live. Welcome back, everybody, to a new episode of the Wheelie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Atoll, and I'm joined again by Electrek's Seth Weintraub. How's it going, Seth?
I'm good.
Awesome. And we've got another pile of interesting electric bike, electric motorcycle, and more stories this week. We're going to cover everything from new e-bikes from Trek and 630 to some interesting political updates on an e-bike bill. Gogoro's got a new electric scooter. Some sad news out of Sweden about cake motorcycles. I just got a new electric Harley, and Seth has put some serious time on electric snowboard that he's going to update us on. So where are we going to start this week, Seth?
All right. 630 launches the electric bike trike. Trike. Everyone says they actually want.
Yeah, so every time I write an article about an electric trike, there's all these like armchair automotive engineers that come out of the woodwork to be like, well, actually, if you put the two wheels up front, it'd be so much more stable. And technically, yes, that is correct, but that almost never happens in the e-bike world because it's just a lot more complicated and a lot more costly to design dual front wheels with the steering and everything. But an e-bike company called 630 has gone and done it. They've made not only a reverse trike or a tadpole trike with the two wheels up front, but they've also made it a folding design. And on top of that, it is even a tilting trike. So not only is it more stable with two wheels up front, but it actually leans into the turns. So you turn more like a traditional bicycle. And that's really sort of the beauty of this system is that you've got the increased stability of the two front wheels and the normal leaning sensation. So you don't feel like you're getting thrown off of the thing in the turns. They are very small wheels. I think it's 16-inch up front and then a 20-inch wheel in the back. But the other nice advantage of going with the reverse trike or the tadpole trike design is that instead of typically having a front wheel drive trike, you've now got a rear wheel drive trike because they can put that 750 watt hub motor in the rear wheel. And that's where it looks like on this design, most of the weight is going to be because the seat is so far back. If you're watching the YouTube video here with us as opposed to listening, you'll see we're watching a video of someone test riding this. And it actually looks like a pretty nice and comfortable setup. As far as electric trikes go, it's not even that big. You know, e-trikes are often big and bulky, but this one looks only slightly larger than a typical e-bike, even in its unfolded state, you know, not even talking about how small it gets when it's folded. So it's really neat to see 630 come out with this tadpole trike for a fairly reasonable price. I believe it's priced at $1,999, so you know, $2,000 for one of these. That's about a $500 premium over the typical $1,500 electric trikes that we see, like the Electrek XP trike and like the Rad trike that's now on sale. But you do have that tadpole design, which everybody seems to want. So now the question is, now that this thing exists, is everyone who says, well, I'd rather have two wheels up front, going to actually buy the thing?
Yeah, so I think we saw a tadpole trike at one of the bike shows, probably at Eurobike that I'm thinking. Um, and I remember getting on it, and I remember thinking, one of the reasons people get trikes because they feel really stable. Like when you're not moving, you can kind of just sit on it and chill. But I remember the tadpole trike that we tried there would actually just kind of fall over. If you leaned to the left, it would kind of just lean and you kind of fall. And that's great for riding. You can ride it more like a two-wheeled bike, but it's not great for people who have, mobility or balance issues. And it kind of like, if that's an issue, why even go with three wheels? You know, like I don't know if she's gonna try it. We're watching the YouTube still. But it seems like see how that just kind of falls over. If you're like falling one way or the other, I mean, does that kind of negate the three wheel capability? I mean, me personally, I would much rather ride this thing than a two wheels in the back. So does this flexibility also kind of eliminate the main advantage of where trikes are kind of important for people who don't have great balance or don't trust themselves to balance a bike. What are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
that's a good point. You know, one of the things that's nice about typical trikes that are not leaning is that you never have to put your feet down. And so here, you're right, when she leans real far at a stop, the thing gets a little unwieldy. I wonder if there's a way to, I almost thought you were playing the video in reverse there for a second. She was
Yeah.
backing up. I wonder if there's a way to lock the
Oh,
leaning
maybe it has a
because,
reverse though. It looks like she might be in
yeah,
reverse there.
yeah, it looks like it does. That's actually a really nice feature. I'm going to talk about that when we get to the live wire because my new $17,000 motorcycle does not have reverse, which is very frustrating. But and this $2,000 trike does. But yeah, I wonder if there's a way to lock that leaning because that would solve that issue. Because
Yeah, especially if like an automatic lock where if you're not moving at all, it would just lock into, trike mode, I guess, or three wheel mode. And then once you start rolling, then it kind of loosens up. What do you think?
oh, that would be beautiful. Yeah, I wasn't even thinking automatic, even just like a switch. But yeah, if it could just do it on its own, like now you're talking. Of course, that's not going to be a $2,000 trike anymore, but
Is this a $2,000 trike?
yeah,
That's
they're
great.
taking pre-orders on it now. It's not. I don't think it's going to be shipping soon, but it's priced at 1999.
That's awesome. And I remember, so this one looks a little bit different, the one that we're seeing on the kind of press images versus the one we saw in the video. There's no back to the seat in the video. Do we know what the default configuration is going to be, or is it a removable back to the seat?
Yeah, that's probably an upgrade seat. I know Electrek also does like an upgrade option, so you can get that seat back. I found that when I've ridden trikes like this, it seems nice, but I end up not really using it because I'm sitting forward like I would on a normal bike. Like when you're on a bike, you're just not used to having a backrest. So
Right.
it
But
seems nice, but I feel like I don't even lean into it.
yeah, but you're also not probably the target market for a trike,
That's
and
fair.
maybe the folks that are like the back. I don't know. Uh,
Yeah.
cool. Well, I like to see more of these. Are they gonna send us one to review or?
Hopefully, yeah. I'm actually working on a review of their rickshaw trike, which is two wheels in the back, but has a big bench where you can theoretically put two people, but I've had like five people so far.
Oh, geez,
So maybe the next trike after this one will be this leaning tadpole trike.
interesting. All
Yeah.
right, let's move on. This one's great. Trek unveils the new Marlin Plus e-bike, pushing Bosch mid-drives to new affordability.
Yeah, I knew you were going to like this one, Seth. So this is Trek's newest electric mountain bike. It's based off their very popular Marlin acoustic mountain bike. This time it comes with a Bosch electric motor, though, which is a big deal because Bosch mid drives, they're seen as one of the top tier electric mountain bike drives on the market, and they're not cheap. These bikes generally cost $4,000 or $5,000 from big bike shop brands like this. And so what we're seeing now is Trek's probably lowest price mid-drive e-bike that we've seen so far. I think it's $2,700 is the starting price, though you can get a few other nicer bits and pieces on it that's going to ratchet the price up by like $1,000. But to start a Trek-made Bosch-powered mid-drive electric mountain bike at $2,700 is a big deal. Now we have seen Trek bikes for less, Trek electric bikes, but they're hub motor bikes. So having a brand name like Bosch on here at this price is pretty nuts. Now it's not a big battery, it's their 400 watt hour. I think it's the compact tube battery, so you can't even take it out. And it's not a powerful motor. It's their sort of entry level motor that's got I forget if it's 60 Newton meters of torque. I'll have to double check on that one, but it's not their ultra powerful climb any hill type of motors. It's their Active Line Plus, which is acceptable. You're still going to be putting in your own honest pedaling, but it will take you most places. And so there are some, I don't want to say corners cut here because it still looks like a very good bike, but it's not going to have the biggest batteries. It's not going to have the highest power, and it's not going to have the nicest drivetrain. But it is coming from Trek, so you know that it's going to use all good parts. And most importantly, you're going to have service and support from Trek and be able to go to local bike shops to get it serviced, which for a lot of people is probably the deciding factor. If you're buying an expensive electric mountain bike, you don't want to be stuck with where am I going to get this thing serviced. Oh, and now I see the 50 Newton meter torque number there. So, modest, not anything crazy, but still certainly fine power. But yeah, Seth, I can see this as being like right up your alley.
Yeah, I mean, the market kind of needs something like this, I think. You know, people want to get into electric mountain bikes, but they don't trust kind of the new brands coming out of China, or, the ones that are basically just made up. They trust Trek, but they also, they don't want to spend, I don't know, I think $5,000 is kind of like the starting point for typical Trek mountain bikes. And Trek has made like bike e-bikes priced at this price point before, and I think even with Bosch stuff, but like I feel like the Verve, they had a Verve for 2600, but that's kind of like a hybrid street bike or whatever. Um, so I think this is a great like starting point for a Trek high quality e-mountain bike. Although, like, did they give specs on that suspension fork? Looks a little bit low end.
Yeah, I
But
don't recall which fork it is. I mean, a lot of these parts are going to be a bit lower shelf, but Trek's not going to put garbage on here.
right. Well, I mean, that's what's great about the Trek brand is, like, you're getting good stuff all around. Even, their lowest cost, which, admittedly is, you can get a e-mountain bike for half the price, but it's going to be much worse off. And of course, like, having a Bosch drivetrain is like, I kind of feel like that's like a $2,000 starting point right there. Like,
Yeah,
you add a Bosch drivetrain, you're adding $2,000 to the cost of the bike. It also looks like they have big brake stuff up front, which is good. I I I remember you said the battery's non-removable. Is that even by like a bike shop? Like, in 5 years, that can it be removed like that way, or is it just not like user removable or whatever?
right. I think it's still serviceable. A lot of those batteries you can remove after taking either the motor out, or if they're not mid drives, often you take the pedals out and slide it out
Hmm.
past the bottom bracket. But I think this is the compact tube that isn't removable for charging.
Okay. And this might also be a good way for, mountain bikers to kind of ease into electric mountain bikes. So you're a mountain biker, maybe you're, my age, 50, and you're like, I need some help on those hills a little bit. This is a good way to like dip your toes into the e-mountain bike world without like, fully going e-bike. You can keep your downhill bike as well. So
Absolutely, yeah.
I love to see this.
Yeah, this is exciting for the industry, I think.
All right, let's move forward. Congress finally agrees on electric bike bill, but not the one everyone wanted. That's typical.
Yeah, of course. This is not the e-bike act, which was working its way pretty well through Congress to provide a federal incentive for e-bike purchases. Instead, this is a new bill that is designed to give the Consumer Product Safety Commission a mandate to regulate electric bike batteries in the U.S. Because right now they can only create voluntary standards, not something that's enforceable. And so the idea behind this bill is to give them the authority to say, like, these are the standards that e-bikes imported into the U.S. need to meet to ensure that these batteries are safe. And this relates to something we've covered a decent amount, that there's been an uptick in fires caused by lithium ion batteries from electric bikes and electric scooters and other micromobility devices. I think it is important to keep this in perspective, that we're talking about even in New York, cases of, like, I think it was 17 deaths last year, which each one is a tragedy, but there are many more deaths on the subway, for example. So while this is a problem, it's important to keep it in perspective. But in this case, this is all about both parties of Congress seeming to come together on one of the few times that at least I've seen any bipartisan action in the last year or two. And so in that way, I think this is a good thing, and that we all want e-bikes to be safer, um, even for people that don't ride e-bikes. If you've got someone living in the apartment beneath you, and they're charging their bike, you want to make sure that their bike is safe because that affects you. So I would call this generally a good thing. I hope that the regulations that may come out of this, if this bill actually passes, are not overly heavy-handed. We want to make sure that we don't stifle e-bike innovation and sort of limit smaller companies that don't have the financial coffers to be able to keep up with some of this increased burden of regulation. But of course, it is very important to ensure safety here. So in general, I think this is a great thing. And if this is what it takes to finally get some bipartisan support, then perhaps it's just one more feather in e-bikes caps.
Yeah, what's actually kind of interesting to me as well is that if there is a battery standardization kind of byproduct from this, if there's like a, hey, you need to have this, this, and this for the batteries, the e-bike companies might be like, oh crap, we don't have enough time to make up something like that. Let's just get a off the shelf solution here, and maybe a couple big companies figure it out and make a compatible bike battery, and lo and behold, all the bike batteries are the same, and you can take one bike battery from another, and like all of a sudden you've got kind of a standard. That would be a really great byproduct of something like this.
Yeah, that sounds beautiful. I hope that's
You're too jaded.
possible. Yeah, yeah, really. I mean, it's not impossible. I think that is absolutely plausible in that you're right. If companies have to sort of go back to the drawing board and start figuring out new solutions, and there's only a couple big battery suppliers that say like, listen, we already got this worked out, then maybe companies are finally sort of forced to coalesce around one or just a couple designs. I'll keep my fingers crossed for that. I don't know if I bet
You
on
wouldn't
it,
put.
but I'll.
You're not going to put money on it though.
No,
That's fair.
I'm afraid not, unfortunately.
All right. Well, hopefully it makes it through. All right, let's move forward. Gogoro launches new pulse electric scooter as highest performance model yet.
Yeah, this one's exciting. This is a totally new design for Gogoro. If you're familiar with the company's scooters, they've always been very, like bubbly, cute, rounded, just that like very sort of like fun Asian design. And this new scooter, not only is it higher performance, but it takes a totally new design. It's very angular, it's very sharp edges, and it's got a lot of new technology. One of the standout features is the higher power. So it's got a 9 kilowatt motor, and it's been sort of like wink, wink hinted to me from some people inside the company that there's a chance that in the future that motor could do more power. Right now, it's limited to 9 kilowatts, which is plenty for an electric scooter. It's unclear what the top speed is, but it's significantly more power than the Gogoro scooters that have done in the like 55 to 60 mile per hour range. So it's probably going to do at least 60, if not a good bit higher than that, certainly highway speeds. But they've also got a new cooling system. The scooters have always been liquid cooled up until now, but now they're using both a combination of liquid and forced air to create not only a higher power scooter, but also a more efficient scooter than they've had in the past, so that they can use those same batteries in a higher power motor and still get that good range. Of course, Gogoro is famous for those swappable batteries, which is what really makes them stand out as having this sort of de facto international battery swapping standard. And then the last two sort of like really cool tech features here. One is this massive screen. I think it's like a 10-inch screen on this thing that has a lot of different impacts. It's going to do like turn-by-turn navigation. You're going to have lots of different customization for your screen. It's basically like an automotive level display, but put onto a scooter, which we've never really seen before. The second big innovation here is the headlight, which again is almost like automotive level. It's made out of, I think, 13 different segments, and they're not all on at the same time, but they alternate depending on your speed and your lean angle and things like that, so that as you're going faster, it's shining light further out ahead of you, so you can have higher reaction time. When you're leaning into turns, the more you lean, the more it's turning on like the outer edge lights to sort of lead you into the turn and let you see further around coming obstacles, that sort of thing. So it's really interesting in how it works. That it doesn't have any moving parts, and yet it kind of like moves the light around depending on the riding conditions and how you're riding. So just like a lot of really cool innovations that we haven't seen from Gogoro yet, put into this new scooter to make it just a lot more high performance, a lot higher tech, and kind of pushing the company in this new, more sort of aggressive design language. Obviously, they're still producing their other scooters. There's still a lot of like cute, bubbly, round Gogoro scooters out there, but this is definitely one to watch as it rolls out.
Yeah, I think this is awesome and definitely the way to go, especially the the theoretical highway component. And of course, like it's not in the U.S. yet, but we would love to see these things here. We did see that the Gogoros in the Americas now, which is South America, right?
Yes, they're going into I think Colombia and shoot, there's another country I forget. There's somewhere else in South America. So they're definitely expanding into the Americas, which is a big deal because they have not yet been um, west of like Israel, I think. I mean, they were in Germany for a little while as part of a scooter share program, Coop, I think, but they've basically only been in Asia so far. So to even come to South America is a big deal, and maybe it means North America's next. Who really knows?
I would love to see New York. I think New York would be perfect for this kind of situation. Um, but
Absolutely.
back to this particular vehicle. How do they? I mean, obviously they've had the batteries around for a long time. They've been for the mediocre speed um, uh, scooters. How do they get so much power out of the same batteries? I mean, you mentioned that the forced air cooling. Do they take like electricity from both batteries at the same time? And also, does that like diminish the the range? I mean, I'm sure it does if you're going much faster. Does this store like more batteries? What's this like the idea there?
Yes, I think it's still two batteries, like most of their scooters, and it does use the same batteries, but they've designed these batteries really well from the outset. I mean, this battery design has been around for I think like 8 years now. And so I think they've basically overbuilt them to give them the opportunity to expand into higher power machines like this. The other thing is that their whole battery swapping system is very intelligent in that when someone goes up to these swapping stations, it knows what not only what vehicle they have to sort of like give them the better battery for them. So, if they have this Pulse, then it's probably going to give them the newer, fresher batteries, but also the individual rider. It knows how they ride. So like
Interesting.
if it's like a grandma that she just doesn't really give a lot of throttle often and she's like very easy on it, it'll sort of give her the like older, weaker batteries that are still okay, but they're not going to have as much power as the newer battery kind of thing. So they've got a really well worked out system there.
And the Pulse takes two batteries like every other Gogoro.
Yeah, yeah, and they do run in parallel, so it's drawing from both of them at the same time.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess that is like the two batteries at once idea. All right. Let's move on. Breaking electric motorcycle company Cake quietly files for bankruptcy. That was a bummer.
Yeah, this is really sad to see because Cake has always been a fascinating company to watch. They've got their own design language. It's very unique. It's very Scandinavian. And while I don't know that I would personally ride one, I've always loved that they existed, and I love seeing them because it's just like seeing this cool, engineering design rolling down the road. But unfortunately, the company, um, while nearing the end of a capital funding raise, one of their investors backed out and they didn't have time to find the remaining funds, and they were forced to file for bankruptcy last week, I believe, which is just a really sad day for the industry. It has been a tough last year or so for the motorcycle and bicycling industries. We just haven't seen, the huge sales coming out of the pandemic years keep up in 2023 the way they did in 2021 and 2022. So this unfortunately looks like it's going to be another casualty of the current financial situation. It's hard to say what happens here. I mean, bankruptcy is designed to protect a company to help shield it from some of its debt in a way that can potentially help it survive. It's unclear if that's what's going to happen here. The other sort of big bankruptcy we saw recently was Van Moof, and in that case, it sort of worked the way it was intended to. The company was able to find a new buyer and is going to come back in some form with McLaren's scooter company as sort of the new owner. So maybe this isn't the end for Cake. Maybe this is just a bump in the motorcycle road here, but it's hard to say for sure what's going to happen, and the prospects never look good when you get to this step, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's always a little bit scary because Cake was so unique in their designs. And I think the broader problem, like there's been a lot of problems in the e-bike industry of late, and I think the broader problem is the interest rates on capital. It used to be close to zero, and now you can't just throw money around anymore without paying like significant interest rates on it. So I think all the brands without like really strong you know some profitability or some like end in sight kind of debt are in you know a little bit of peril. um but it would be nice to see Cake come out of this the other side, or maybe some bigger company picks them up. I know that they've had some tie-ups with the automotive company Polestar, which is also, or Volvo and Polestar, Sweden based. I wonder if that's a possible. Obviously they're owned by Geely, or mostly owned by Geely. I wonder if that's a possible buyer of a bankrupted Cake.
Yeah, that would be fascinating, actually.
Um, I see here there's like a bunch of U.S. and Swedish investors involved. Do we know what uh, the market cap, I guess, of Cake is these days? I have just no idea.
No, it wasn't public, so I'm not sure that those figures are going to be out there.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's anybody's guess at this point. Like, there's different
Yeah,
different levels put on it. Well, I hope they return to solvency or whatever, and become a player in the business again.
absolutely.
All right. Watch this electric motorcycle ride battery deep through California floodwaters.
This one's kind of wild. It's not the first time we've seen electric motorcycles get a bit wet. And we've all seen videos of Teslas just about floating, driving super deep through water. But this really illustrates one of the advantages of electric vehicles, and in this case, electric motorcycles, is that they can be essentially entirely sealed. They don't have an air breathing engine like internal combustion engine motorcycles. And that means that as long as the components are sufficiently waterproofed, there's almost no limit to the amount of water they can ride in as long as the bike can stay up. In this case, we've got the motorcycle essentially completely submerging its battery under these waters and riding around just fine. The battery and almost everything on the bike is IP67 rated on this Rivet Anthem motorcycle. And that means that you could take the battery and throw it in the shallow end of a pool, like 3 feet deep, and it'll sit there for an hour, no problem. I mean, that's the minimum for the rating. It'll probably last a lot longer, but you could, submerge your battery, fish it out, pop it in the motorcycle, and just continue riding. I was talking to the founder of the company about this when I saw this video. What he told me is that basically everything on the bike, with the exception of the display, is IP67 rated, meaning it could be submerged. The display and its connectors are IP65, which I think is protected against water jets from every angle. So, like you could ride it in rain and stuff, but you can't necessarily submerge it. And so what he said is, well, I asked him, does that mean you could basically ride this thing in water up to the handlebars? And he said, yeah, and you can even ride it in higher water. You just might lose your display. So, there's basically no limit to how wet you can get this thing, which is kind of fun to see. Now, it's not very practical, especially in like raging floodwaters, because you don't really want to ride through that stuff and get swept away very easily. In this case, this is very like still water in the flooded loading dock area. But so we're not recommending riding through floodwater, but it is kind of a neat demonstration that just shows how easy it is, or maybe easy isn't the right word, but how well waterproofed motorcycles can be created.
Yeah, so this would be great for Florida, where it floods like every few months. So You could just have this sitting in
Yeah.
your garage while the water's up to the wheel wells.
Yeah, this
Uh,
is your hurricane bike.
yeah, this is your hurricane bike, guys. That's super cool. Does this thing float? Like, I can't imagine. I mean, the bike
So I asked
tires.
him about that. Yeah, like with all the air volume in the tires, and he said there's still like good traction. He said they wanted to do a video with like snorkel gear and stuff to like see how deep they could get this thing and still ride it. But it seems like it weighs enough. I think it's like 280 pounds, so I'm not mistaken. So even with all that tire volume, it seems to still ride pretty well.
Interesting. I wonder if they could get like some floaties to put on the side and keep it like wheel high. So like the wheel was kind of turning and you could kind of turn it into a jet ski kind of thing.
You can get some like big dirt bike tires, almost like paddle tires, and
Yeah.
just have like a big paddle wheel.
Yeah. Miss
Yeah, that
like
would do it.
they're missing a huge market.
I'll bring that up with them.
All right. And speaking of weird situations, I finally got the review out of the Cyrusher Ripple electric snowboard. This thing was absurd from the beginning. I so so just a little bit of background. The Cyrusher Ripple is a snowboard with a hole cut in the back of it, with a big hub wheel, with a kind of a snowmobile traction in the wheel. It weighs 33 pounds, which is about uh, 30 pounds more than a typical snowboard. I mean, a typical snowboard is, 5, 10 pounds. So, I mean, it's just like a super heavy in the back snowboard, which is important because like when you're riding it, it totally changes, the use case of it. It's not just the hub motor that makes it heavy. It also has a waterproof controller. If you're watching the YouTube video, that's the controller. And then it doesn't have the battery. So you're talking about another, I don't know, 10, 15 pounds in a backpack with a wire attached. So not super simple and easy as you would kind of hope, but the thing I keep coming back to is this is the first one and it works. Um, you know, it the I can glide across the snow, and more importantly, my son who weighs about half of what I weigh can actually use it in a ton of different types of snow. For me, the snow had to be perfect. It has to be very firm, but also very slippery. For him, he was kind of doing stuff in powder and you know other types of snow. So my weight and I typically have a much bigger snowboard. Made it a little bit harder to get pushed off, and then also harder to maneuver the thing because um, you know, you typically maneuver a snowboard by, like carving, and this thing just it's hard to carve. It's hard enough to steer, let alone carve. So my son, who's a competitive snowboarder, um, found it pretty easy. So when you take a look at this thing, it kind of reminds you of a snowboard, but it's also a bit like a electric skateboard or snowmobile, electric skateboard, and of course that motor is kind of a scooter motor, a powerful one. It's 3 kilowatts. So specs wise, 3 kilowatt motor in the back, which is crazy. Um, the battery is I think 650 watt hours. The it says it can go 30 miles and 30 miles per hour. Probably not at the same time. So, all pretty interesting specs from this, first of its kind vehicle. Um, Obviously, it's got a barrel controller. It definitely felt like this was put together with parts from, e-bikes and scooters and stuff like that. So, yeah, I actually there's a little demonstration. It has a kind of an e-bike, sorry, an electric skateboard controller, which makes sense in this kind of scenario because um, it kind of feels like an electric skateboard. When you push it forward, it obviously accelerates the wheel, but when you push backwards, it doesn't go into reverse. It actually brakes. And like I said before, it doesn't operate like a snowboard, it's hard to like turn sideways and stop. So that brake is actually pretty nice to have because once you get going fast and you want to slow down, it's not easy to swing the back around and slow down. So having that brake slows you down, but it kind of turns it into a different type of vehicle. So for those watching, here's a video of me accelerating on very thin but slippery snow. And you can tell it's losing a little traction. I think a traction control module in there would really do a lot of benefit. Um, and then I cut it obviously before I fell over, but uh, this is some example of me in kind of crusty powdery snow, where you'll see it spins quite a bit before it actually gets traction. And then once it finally gets traction, after I'm pushing it a little bit, um, it moves, but it's all or nothing. So this is something that I think Cyrusher can kind of work on a little bit. And we know Cyrusher does e-bikes that we like. So I kind of feel like this is like one of those garage toys. Maybe one of the founders or one of the you know chief technical people is a snowboarder and was like every other snowboarder, like, hey, what if we put an electric wheel on the back of a snowboard? What would happen? Definitely a version one thing. But you can see there, my son's having a blast on it. So um, I think there's something here. I just don't think that this is going to be for a lot of people. What's your take there, Micah?
Yeah, I mean, look, the first days of electric bikes were like real rough, right? I mean, it was like almost the early days of motorcycles where it was like a weed whacker engine on a bike kind of thing. So this has very early e-bike days vibes, but we've come a long way since then. So I could see maybe 10 years from now, there's much nicer, much less bulky ways to drive an electric snowboard. And it really becomes like a just an augment thing as opposed to this massive powerhouse on the back of a snowboard. Maybe it is something you can actually carve with, and it's just there to help you get back up the hill, kind of thing. Or maybe they're like clip-on units that like you ride up to the top of the hill and you pop it off and you ride back down. And maybe like the ski park has them as like they're owned by the ski park, so you don't have to remember to grab yours at the top again, kind of thing.
Yeah,
You just like
and they're all just
pop
sitting
it
in a
on.
charging dock or something.
Yeah. So like I'm sure there's potential here. But like you said, this is very much like V1 early days kind of thing, which, as an engineer excites me. Everything starts in the early days.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And I like kudos to Cyrusher for like actually putting this thing out. Like when I first saw it, I was like, oh, this is probably just a marketing ploy, and they'll make a few of them, and take them to some ski hills and get some publicity, and put some links to their e-bikes in there, and that's the play. But they're actually selling this, and I think for a certain segment this will be a fun toy to play with. I know my son certainly wants to take it to school and show his friends. um, so I think there's something here, but and there's so much more stuff to do to improve it. I was actually thinking like like a one wheel design with like you put the wheel between the legs, and that might be the play there, and maybe you put it in neutral when you're going down a hill, so you don't have to remove it, or if you remove it, you have to fill in that hole somehow, so you're not pulling up snow. And so a lot of scenarios there. um,
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like you need to sit down with the Cyrusher people and like a notepad and be like, listen, guys, we got to talk. There's a lot to
yeah,
go on here.
yeah, and I feel like they probably know, like they're using it too. They probably know what version 2 needs to have, or some of the things version 2 needs to have. So my feedback to them is like, keep at it, like keep pulling strings, make it lighter, make it use, like, you don't need 3 kilowatts of power. 1 kilowatt would probably be enough. You don't really need to go too far, like uphill too hard, because like the power always is more than the snow. And then of course a traction control thing would be nice as well. So
Definitely.
yeah, anyway, I think there's something here. Should we move on to comments? If you are watching live and we see there's dozens of us, uh, go ahead and give us a comment, and we'll get into the comments here, which are pretty small. All right.
We skipped over one though, my live wire story.
Oh, we skipped over the live riot. Oh my gosh, sorry.
All good, all good.
You gotta.
I knew you just didn't want to follow the live wire. That's all.
I no. I uh, I was so excited about the Cyrusher, I just blew
Yeah,
into that.
it
All
was a
right.
last minute edition. This just got posted like right before the podcast.
I bought Harley's new electric motorcycle. Delivery was a hot mess, but it's still awesome.
Yeah, so I've been super excited about this one. I've been on the fence about which electric motorcycle to get. I've been wanting to buy one as my like, you know, everyday rider for in the U.S. for a while, and it was. I've said before it was really coming down to either the Rivet Anthem or the Livewire Del Mar. I went with the Del Mar just because to me having that like added benefit of local dealers as well as twice the battery size was a big part to me. Part of me kind of wishes I just got the Rivet also, but maybe that's down the road. But anyways, it came time for delivery of this bike, and it was a wild process. Now I think other people have had much better delivery experiences than mine, but mine was a sight to be seen. So I have an appointment. I head down to the Livewire store in Sunrise, Florida. It's like 30 miles away from where I stay in Florida when I'm
So
in the
the
U.S.
Livewire store is separate from the Harley store, or is it part of the Harley store?
It's a great question. Until I went to pick it up, I assumed it was separate. Once I got there, I realized it's just the local Harley Davidson dealer. And I guess they have like, a second, suite two on the mailing address is Livewire, which is fine. Like they work together. Livewire was spun out of Harley. So I get there, I walk in, I'm like, hey, I'm here to pick up my Livewire. And they're like, cool, who are you? And you're what? And then
Okay.
no
And what's a
idea.
Livewire?
Exactly, yeah. And so like no one knew who I was. No one knew there was going to be a delivery that day. They didn't even think they had my motorcycle there, which it's supposed to have been shipped there like 5 weeks prior. And so, everyone's very confused. I text my couple Livewire contacts, and they're like, they all get working real quick. And suddenly, um, the Harley Davidson dealership people find my bike. It's upstairs in their like long-term storage. And so I think like, all right, great, now things are going to go well. But after they
How did
find
they
it,
get it upstairs? Like, do they bring it down the stairway?
there's a special elevator
Oh, good,
for
good.
motorcycles. Yeah. Um, so once they find it, it turns out it's got 0% charge, which I don't know how long it was sitting like that, but that's a big problem because I have to ride it home. So
Also,
they
not great for the battery, is it? To let it.
yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna have to follow up on that. But but like that's a future mica problem. The first mica problem is
Right.
getting this bike out of here. So they put it on like a 120-volt charger on the wall there. That's what we're looking at here in the service center. It's a 10.5 kilowatt hour battery, so you're looking at like an 8 hour charge that way. Not ideal. And so and it
So
was funny because
they don't
yeah,
have a level 2 charger for like the old Harleys. I mean, I feel like a lot of Harleys stations even had like level 3, like
yes.
fast chargers.
So interesting note there. So they don't have a level two there. One of the employees, so they were all super nice. They're all like trying to be very helpful because they're like as surprised as I am. So one of them's like, "Oh, well, let's like plug it into the level three charger we have." And like I couldn't even explain to them yet that it can't DC fast charge before someone else was like, "Oh yeah, we had that decommissioned." So apparently they ripped out their DC fast charger at the Sunrise, Florida Harley Davidson dealer. So
I
there
wonder if
were a
they had
number
like a
of
ceremony when they
problems.
ripped it out. They're like, screw these electric things.
Yeah, so it was a bit of a cluster fudge there, but eventually I got like 15% or so into the battery. I looked on PlugShare, and like a quarter mile down the road was a charge point station. So I was like, perfect. Like, I only need like 3% battery to get there. So charged it for like an hour, rode down to charge point, um, got the battery up to like 40%, and then I was like, all right, let's head home. It was like a 30-mile ride home. Uh,
You got it to what percent to go 30
I got up
miles?
to like 40% using the level two charger.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
but then on the way home, I had to stop to have a meeting with you actually. So we had a Zoom for an Electrek thing.
My bad.
And I'm riding to another charging station. I'm going to charge it on the way, like to stop and have the Zoom call. But now I see that not only is the battery getting really low, and I'm not sure if I'm going to make it, but also my phone battery is down to like 6%, and I have to use the GPS, which is like not super great for your phone battery. And I need my phone to like activate that charger when I get there. So it's like, do I ride fast to get there and still have my phone battery to be able to charge, or do I ride slower? And but if I ride too fast, I won't have any motorcycle battery. So I like just had to like balance it right in the middle of that catch 22, and I rolled in with 8% motorcycle battery and like 6% phone battery. So ended up being fine. I was able to charge, got up to like 50% while we were in a Zoom meeting, and then rode the rest of the way home uneventful. So just like a total mess of a delivery, but the bike itself is incredible. I'm in love with the thing. It's got I think it's like 70 kilowatt. I got to double check. It's 0 to 60 in 3.1 seconds. So it's just crazy fast. 10 and a half kilowatt hours. That gives me like 113 miles of city range. I've only had it for a day. So, I don't have a lot of range testing on it yet. But, for city needs, like I'm never going to need to go more than 113 miles. And this is really sort of a higher end of the commuter motorcycles. This is not something you're going to be touring on, that sort of thing. So
Yeah,
for my
my next
needs,
my next question was, are you going to be able to take it from one side of Florida to the other?
theoretically, yes, but I got to go a bit more northern because that southern route across Alligator Alley,
Hmm.
there's, I think, one charger in the middle and it's a DC fast charger. So,
Ah,
yeah, one day there will be more level two chargers, but to do it
I,
now, I would have to
I
go
mean,
more
it
northern.
really doesn't make sense to have a level two charger there in the middle of unless there's like a tourist, like, buy smokes
Yeah,
from Native American reservation or something.
generally, yes, I'd agree with you. But the cool thing about electric motorcycles is that a level two charger is almost like a fast charger for a
Right,
motorcycle.
right.
Like if I stop for lunch, I can get, like 60 to 80% of my battery charged on a level two.
Yeah, but I mean, how many people are on electric motorcycles crossing Alligator Alley? I can't imagine. It's a big
I think
market.
just me. Yeah.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah, there's not a high route.
there has to be like an outlet, a NEMA 1450 outlet somewhere between the two. I mean, I was doing research on doing going to the top of Alaska, and I found like this airport, and I called them and I was like, hey, can I talk to your electrician about and that the electrician was also the phone call operator and also like the guy who ran the airport, and he was like, yeah, we have a couple of those. So I was like, oh, cool, we could ride a truck, from, but turns out 10 other people had already done it, so we never did it.
Uh,
Anyway, yeah, so you could probably find a level two outlet and bring a charger
and how much
along.
power can you get out of those?
I mean, a level two will do 40 amps at 240, so uh, close to 10 kilowatts. I
Ah,
think it's
okay.
32 amps is 7.2 kilowatts. I think it's 9.6 kilowatts is 40 amps.
Out of the NEMA 1450 that you
Yeah, out
can
of the
get?
NEMA
Oh,
1450.
and I
Yep.
think that's more than this bike can pull. I think it pulls 5.5 kilowatts, if I'm not
Oh
mistaken.
yeah, so you would be fine.
Yeah, that's like more than I would need. Huh, that's interesting. I'll have to look into that. I have ridden across Florida on an electric bicycle, and I basically just like charged at restaurants. I could stop for lunch and sit on the
Right.
porch and like have my batteries under the table. But that doesn't quite work as well for a
No,
motorcycle.
no. And also, like, I'm a little bit surprised that Harley doesn't have a level three charger on this. And it's not because it doesn't need to charge that fast. It's just because it's, level three is DC, which is the battery. You don't have to have an inverter or rectifier or whatever. Um,
Right.
you just basically tell the thing, hey, I want whatever, you know, wattage and current and amperage that
Voltage. Yeah.
the battery charges at, and theoretically the thing should provide it. Um,
Yeah, I wonder if it was either cost or cooling. I mean, they made the decision for one reason or the other, or maybe they just kept it out as like another reason to upgrade to the Livewire One, which
yeah,
is like 7,000 more and does have DC fast charging.
I mean, I know
Yeah.
you've only had this for 24 hours, but how does it feel from, like after riding it? Are you kind of tired? Is it the riding position comfortable? That's something that you would do for hours on end, or is it kind of more of a, quick trips to here and there?
So it's absolutely comfortable. If anything, I'm much more comfortable on this one than the Livewire
Oh,
one,
interesting.
because this one I'm definitely more upright. Now it's not a cruiser at all, but it's got more of a like an upright roadster feel to me. Whereas the Livewire one, because its battery is so long and it's got that really long motor, the reach is really far. So you're like leaning out over what feels like a really long gas tank kind of thing on the top of it. And so I'm much more comfortable in this one. And that's actually why I bought it, was because September of 22, I did the first press ride actually for this motorcycle. And like right after I got off it, I was like, man, that just felt amazing. Sign me up, whatever orders open. So to me, it feels great. Um, and you can certainly ride it for much longer than the batteries would last. Now at city speeds, if you're doing 30 miles an hour, that's like 4 or 5 hours of riding. So you're rarely going to go that far or that long. But for me, it just feels great. It's nice that it has the power that even if you're in a city, and the light turns green, you can just like rock it off. But it's still manageable in a city. It's not a big, massive bike that's out of place there or is uncomfortable to ride in a city.
Yeah, I really like the look of it. Does that the those fins on the side, does that cool the battery or cool the motor? Is that the point there?
Yeah, they're. I mean, it's still liquid cooled, so there's probably a little bit of passive air cooling, but those are like heatsink fins from the side of the battery there on the
That
side.
that's cool. Yeah, I like everything about this. I wish, we've talked about this before, that you could take a motorcycle test on an electric bike and not have to worry about, switching gears and clutches and stuff like that. This one is particularly tempting. I think it would be great to be, for a first time rider. Have we made any progress on the taking a test on an electric motorcycle yet?
I haven't heard of any places that you can, but I feel like it's got to be around the corner. I've been saying that for like a few years now. I mean, there's so many electric motorcycles out now, like it can't be that far away.
And are there any storage options for this? I saw the pack there. I think that's for the charger.
Oh yeah, that's just me resting the little box for the charger there.
Yeah, are there
You
good
can
accessories?
get like tail boxes and stuff like that for sure. I feel like it would ruin the lines of this one, so I don't
Uh-huh.
really intend to put a tail box on it. But you can certainly add all sorts of things. I mean, Harleys are probably some of the most customized bikes of any type of motorcycle brand out there. So I'm sure they're going to have 1,000 different options that you can add on there, and that's how the dealerships make a lot of their money too, is from all of
Right.
those accessories.
Well, I mean, this technically isn't a Harley, so maybe that's a little bit more complicated. Uh,
Yeah. And
All
that's
right.
sort of the interesting thing here, is that like weird interplay between Livewire and Harley, which is part of what led to all that confusion of my delivery. But it's
Right.
got its ups and downs as well.
Yeah, I mean, have they been vocal about like, hey, this is the temporary plan for like a couple years, then we're gonna have our own shops, like not in the same building as Harley, or is this always gonna be like a, you know, left side of the building, right side of the building kind of situation?
Well, I don't know. They do have Livewire experience centers that are just Livewire. It kind of looks like an Apple store almost for motorcycles.
Hmm.
But I think that for a while now, they're really going to rely on the established Harley Davidson network, because it's just such a huge advantage over any other company. Even Zero, that's been building bikes for 15 years, still has limited physical footprint, and they're basically using other motorcycle dealers to carry Zero. So when you have that huge advantage of hundreds of Harley dealerships, I can't imagine them not wanting to continue to use them. And it just, it's part of this sort of Livewire trying to have its cake and eat it too. They want to appear like this young, scrappy startup, but they're still kind
Right.
of like living out of their parents' house in a way.
Yeah. I really like it. What's again the price on this? 10, 12?
So this one is the launch edition, so it was 17,500,
Oh
but
yeah,
the
well.
non-launch edition is 15,500.
And what is that extra $2,000 buy you?
Purple color.
Ooh. Really?
With the cool stripes, yeah. And it's one of 100, so it's individually numbered. Um, and you get either this or there was a gray sort of tiger striped colorway. But to me, the indigo is just like so much cooler. So yeah,
Yeah, it is a really good look.
it's basically the colorway and the fact that it's got an individual number on the side. Mine's 84. But to me,
Lucky
like
man.
also I see this as maybe one day a collector item. I mean, all of these go down in value for a long time before they eventually go up, if they
Right.
ever do. But maybe because it's one of 100 units, then it becomes something special.
And we saw these in Europe. Do we know how they're doing out there as well? Like, have they been delivered yet, or?
I don't think they've started deliveries yet in Europe. It's only fairly recently that they've been on the road in the U.S. So I don't think Europe's had their Delmar deliveries yet.
Okay, and I think we saw it like in the back of a truck or something. Like it was like a prop for an electric car or something like that. So
Oh,
we,
at the was it? I think Ford's IAA stand.
yeah,
I think we
yeah,
saw one. Yeah, but yeah, that was just like a showpiece.
yeah. That was cool though. It's a great looking bike. Reasonably priced, I think. Maybe not, the launch edition, but I think this could be a popular bike. I hope they put some marketing muscle behind it. Most important question, does it pull chicks? Like, were there any ladies who were ponying up to the check this thing out, or is it too early to tell?
So when I rolled a bag into the neighborhood, a lot of the neighbors were very interested to come out and look at it. I think all of the chicks, so to speak, were married, but that's
In the
their
in the
issue.
retirement home area of Florida.
They were young, just married, spoken for.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Yeah,
You don't want any broken hips or anything
yeah.
on the back of this. All
I'll
right.
tell you though, I've picked up more girls on scooters than motorcycles. So
Oh, really?
yeah, don't hate on electric scooters either.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Good to know. Good to know.
yeah.
All right. And we should probably end it on that.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in for this week's episode of the Wheelie Podcast. We'll be back in another 2 weeks with another whole pile of stories. We'll see you next time, everyone.